The building is located near Bacthon Village, Tuduang Town, Zhejiang Province, China. Longzhou Cave Complex is a rare and uniquely magnificent subterranean world. In China, this site is regarded as the ninth wonder of the ancient world. Longzhou Cave is estimated to have formed at least 20 years ago. One of the largest-scale underground resource-extracting nations of the ancient world. And this is an age-old mystery that has baffled experts in every field who have studied them. So what makes the Longzhou Cave system so exceptionally special? The Longzhou Cave Complex is located deep underground with a total area of over 30,000 square meters. Each cave was carved deep into the solid sandstone rock, reaching depths of up to approximately 30 meters. It includes rock saunas, cold plunge pools, children's pools, and a system of water channels. Initially, it was thought to be just a single isolated cave. However, subsequent studies revealed an incredibly impressive network of 36 underground bunkers. All are hand-carved. To date, no historical documents have been discovered. This monumental structure was built after a process that required the relocation of up to 1 million cubic meters of earth and rock. Researchers suggest that if one accounts for the average speed of eye movements a person makes in a day. According to estimates, it would take approximately 1,000 people working around the clock for 6 years to complete the entire project. Looking at the evenly distributed pillars, they are collectively supporting the cave ceiling and walls. Particularly, the boreholes form a series of parallel lines with a width of approximately 60 centimeters. You will surely be a little confused. After more than 2 decades of research, archaeologists still cannot explain how these stone alignments were created. Similar tool marks appear to only be found in modern mining operations. That's when they use cutting machines to create vast open spaces in the mines. However, somehow, the ancients were able to create this magnificent structure. If they didn't use machinery, what technologies did they employ? Mainstream scholars often argue that ancient humans inherently had a rather simple lifestyle and way of thinking. Their livelihoods remained at a rudimentary level of development. Theoretically, humanity's technological development has undergone a journey from an initial primitive level to becoming increasingly modern and advanced. Therefore, if the tools that generate acts of kindness have been validated, then perhaps the aforementioned theories need to be re-examined. To this day, researchers remain completely powerless in determining the identity of the author behind this impressive complex of caves deeply carved into the earth. Just like their purpose and the time of their construction. Could it be that such a labor-intensive job serves only a decorative purpose? If this is true, then what do those straight lines and decorative patterns symbolize? After a comprehensive investigation and study, scientists and scholars have endeavored to find an explanation for these actions. To date, there is still no convincing explanation for the purpose of this structure's construction. Some archaeologists believe these structures could be the tombs of emperors, the palaces of kings, or perhaps even treasure vaults. However, this explanation appears quite forced, as they did not discover any objects or burial sites, nor did any forged artifacts survive. Originally used primarily as an emperor's palace, each structure within it had to be uniquely designed, corresponding to its different functions. Another hypothesis suggests that it was used to exploit and extract mineral resources. However, mining activities require equipment and machinery, but archaeologists found no trace of them. Of course, if the Longzhou cave system was solely intended for quarrying stone, what would be the purpose of creating intricate decorative patterns on the walls, columns, and ceilings? Finally, some scientists believe these structures served as the encampment for the emperor and his army, intended to conceal the secret preparations for war. However, these structures cannot be completed overnight. It takes many years, even decades, to build them. Therefore, it does not appear to be intended as preparation for war, as such actions typically require a much faster pace. Furthermore, there is no indication that humans ever inhabited the area. All available information indicates that these distinct artifacts bear nearly identical characteristics to those found at a ceramic production site near the museum, which dates back to approximately 500 to 800 BC. Do you think the Longzhou army was also built at that time? Another intriguing yet equally challenging and difficult to explain question is, How have these actions managed to remain so perfectly preserved for over 2,000 years? There was no sign of subsidence, no rubber pilings, nor any damage whatsoever, despite the fact that some wall sections were only 50 centimeters thick. Over centuries, through countless floods, natural disasters, and wars, the shapes of the mountains gradually changed, while the stone slabs bore the erosion of the weather. But in these actions, the posture, gestures, and pauses were all incredibly sharp and precise. It looks as if it was just built yesterday. Not only do they maintain their own structure, but their actions also seem neither to interfere with nor affect one another. Zhuanghong Xuan, an expert from the Institute of Archaeology under the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, explained that at the bottom of each row of bricks, the masons will not be able to see the work of those in the adjacent row. However, the structure of each row of bricks had to be perfectly parallel, otherwise, the wall would be punctured with holes. Therefore, the measuring tools of that era had to be extremely precise. Such high precision can only be achieved with a detailed design plan specifying the dimensions, positions, and spacing between the rows prior to construction. All 36 of these actions are concentrated within an area of just 1 square kilometer. With such a dense concentration, one can't help but wonder what would happen if all these actions were interconnected. What is the purpose of creating easy yet disconnected actions for a cramped area, even when the wall separating them is so flimsy? Therefore, from the very beginning of their construction, they were intentionally designed to be separate parts. Moreover, many actions are nearly identical. Besides the massive scale of this relic, there are absolutely no ancient documents describing the underground city or its construction process. However, considering the fact that the ancient Chinese were extremely meticulous in recording and preserving documents and archives, this is truly perplexing. So far, researchers have only come to understand that this cave system is truly spectacular and magnificent. The meticulous and sophisticated architecture proves that these intricate structures were crafted by the hands of talented, anonymous builders. Accuracy down to the smallest detail is proof of a level of technical mastery believed to have been impossible thousands of years ago, at least from the perspective of mainstream history. Tun Wu Chou. Millions of years ago, volcanic eruptions spewed out layer upon layer of a material called tuff or tufa. Over time, tuff is often found embedded in a type of soft yet relatively stable rock. The ancient inhabitants of Anatolia realized they could carve and craft dwellings directly into the hillsides and deep beneath the earth. The Cappadocia region is world-renowned for its vast labyrinths of underground cities. Fairy chimneys. Over thousands of years, as civilizations and peoples came and went, diverse cultures carved intricate structures within and around the chimneys, forming an immensely impressive and unique architectural complex. Although this area has undergone centuries of human use and transformation, when passing through here, one still senses a harmony, a profound respect for the intrinsic values of the natural landscape. The above information was recorded from the website of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, in the section introducing Gureme National Park and the rock sites of Cappadocia. Beneath the ground in this area lie approximately 200 cities, spread across the region, and there are likely even more waiting to be discovered. Of all the underground cities discovered to date, Derinkuyu is perhaps the most astonishing, as it is the deepest known underground settlement. It was discovered by chance in 1963 when a local family was repairing their house and a wall suddenly collapsed, revealing a hidden underground room and passageway. While exploring the passageway, the workers were astonished to discover it led deeper into a labyrinth. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, this city has a total of 18 levels, is 85 meters deep, and spans an area of over 6.5 square kilometers. However, to date, scientists have only been able to explore 8 of its levels. This city features numerous areas dedicated to various daily living activities, including kitchens, bedrooms, bathrooms, food storage, wine presses for winemaking, private quarters, armories, and even churches, schools, tombs, and livestock pens of diverse scales. More than 50 ventilation shafts channel air from above ground, combined with over 15,000 tiny pipes distributing fresh air throughout the city. sufficient to comfortably meet the living needs of 20,000 residents. Moreover, this underground city also features passages leading to other subterranean infrastructure systems, such as wine cellars, underground water tunnels supplying fresh water, and a security system with massive stone doors that can be rolled out to seal the city from within. Each floor is isolated and securely locked from the next by the same security system. The ancient Anatolians clearly devised a perfect plan for a self-sufficient underground life to cope with unforeseen circumstances. Some archaeologists believe that an 8-kilometer tunnel connected Derinkuyu to another magnificent underground city in Kaimakli. This suggests that there were once close connections between different civilizations in the Cappadocia region. This architectural complex, though carved into relatively soft submerged rock, has maintained remarkable structural integrity over an endless stretch of time. Throughout the entire site, there is no evidence whatsoever of degradation or subsidence. From this, it can be inferred that the builders of this network must have possessed a profound understanding of stone, construction, architecture, engineering, and local geography. To this day, the area still welcomes thousands of visitors, including many archaeologists, each year. So ultimately, who are the ones possessing that transcendent knowledge? And what was their true purpose in building this city? Dating this structure precisely remains a major challenge, as the entire city was carved directly from a monolithic rock formation, with no separate quarries or sources of construction material available for sampling and analysis. Moreover, there are absolutely no archival documents regarding the construction process of this structure, and those who once lived there have either vanished or migrated elsewhere long ago. Therefore, the origin of the underground city of Derinkuyu has increasingly become the subject of various theories. Moreover, over the centuries, many different cultures have settled and lived in these underground cities. Researchers believe that the last group of people to have lived here were likely early Catholic devotees. However, it is difficult to substantiate the claim that they themselves were the ones who built these caves. It is believed that religious activities in Cappadocia originated in the 4th century. At that time, under the guidance of Saint Basil, the bishop of Caesarea, a community of hermits began settling in small rooms dug deep into the cliff face, according to information from UNESCO. Then, to counter the Arab army's plundering raids, they began to gather together, forming tribes that lived in caves or underground towns. Like the Makli tree or the Didinkuyu, their inherent function is to serve as a place of refuge. In another hypothesis, researchers suggest that the Hittites dominated the Anatolia region from approximately 1600 BC until 1200 BC. After that period, the Hittite Empire fragmented into numerous small states due to successive invasions and wars. Subsequently, the Friska people migrated to this area from the land of Bakan. Therefore, if the Hittites were indeed the authors, as some scholars have surmised, the Temple of Kuyu was likely completed before 1200 BC. However, some other experts argue that the underground city was built later, when the Friskans arrived in this region between the 5th and 8th centuries BC. However, some people even believe that this underground city dates back to an even more ancient era. Local residents recount that these caves were created by the Persian king Yima. The person lived to be 900 years old. King Yima is likely a mythical figure mentioned in the scriptures, but not a real historical king. The Vendidad of Zoroastrianism states, by the command of the god Ahura Mazda, King Yima built an underground city to protect its people from the harsh and bitter winter. Just like the story of Noah in the Bible, King Yima was revealed that he must gather the finest of humans and species, a pair of each, and the best seeds to replant on earth when the apocalyptic winter ends. The Vendidad was compiled over a process spanning many centuries. Perhaps the event had begun even before the 8th century BC. Although these stories may have been passed down through folklore since ancient times, the exact origin of the story about the underground city is truly difficult to determine. Winter disaster. That means Derinkuyu existed from an extremely distant prehistoric era. Based on the Vendidad texts, this city may have existed between 110,000 and 10,000 years ago. However, the architecture of this structure leads us to a completely different perspective. It was a place of refuge and resistance against the invaders. The presence of national security safeguards. This further reinforces the above hypothesis within the labyrinth. The builders of Derinkuyu designed this underground city with all the necessary features to ensure safety. The passage shows that the underground houses were built to serve as shelters for refugees. The door was a large disc-shaped slab of stone that could pivot, with a small hole at its exact center. Some believe this opening was designed to allow soldiers to shoot arrows outward. Or perhaps a strong beam shot through the hole would allow the user to open and close the door more easily. Each level of the city was connected to another by a corridor and a similar stone door. In addition, this underground city is equipped with a water reservoir system to ensure safety. However, the city's sewer pipes were not interconnected, and not all of them led to the surface. This helps residents avoid the risk of their domestic water supply being poisoned by external invaders. Derinkuyu also helped the local residents avoid harsh weather conditions. The temperature remains fairly stable throughout the year, at around 13 degrees Celsius. Creating a cool living environment for animals. The merits include maintaining the fresh water supply and preserving food to keep it fresh. However, such an extensive network would require a long time to construct. Without the support of modern tools, perhaps the construction workers took quite a long time to complete this project. When lacking the support of modern tools, however, initially this network may have also been hastily constructed for the purpose of concealment. Subsequently, each successive group of arrivals proceeded to carry out restoration work. Based on the stated hypotheses, which one do you find most convincing? Let's share and exchange more in the comments section below. It is likely that the construction workers had to complete this project within an extremely tight deadline. If they are facing the risk of invasion by a